And good evening, I'm Bill Lunn. We are here tonight to address a problem that is an epidemic in our community. Homicides, most of the time young men killing other young men. So far this year, 80 people have been killed by homicide in the city of Shreveport. In fact, in just the last couple of hours tonight in Shreveport, another homicide. This one in the MLK neighborhood on Peach Street. Again, that happening just after 3 o'clock this afternoon. The youngest victim this year of any homicide, just a few months old. Now, I'm standing at the intersection of Hollywood and Jewella tonight, and I'm here for a reason. This is Shreveport's deadliest zip code. This is zip code 71109. 20 people have been killed in this zip code this year. In fact, if this zip code were its own city, it would have the highest homicide rate in the entire nation. We're going to hear more about the deadliest zip code in just a moment. But we're here tonight to do more than just point out a problem. We're here to offer solutions. In the next hour, you're going to hear from city leaders, the mayor, the police chief, the U.S. attorney, the Caddo DA. You're going to hear the stories of mothers who've lost their young sons to violence, and we're going to hear from local pastors on potential solutions. But first, let's take a look back on a deadly year and what's got us to this point tonight.
It only took until the third day of January for Shreveport to register its first homicide. That day, police reported 2 killings. 20-year-old Zachorian Hinton shot and killed in the 6900 block of Jewella Avenue, and 18-year-old Jamarvion Oliver shot in the 2800 block of Randolph. By the end of January, 9 people had been killed by gun violence in Shreveport. By mid-March, more than 20 were dead, all by gunfire, and that's when the youngest victim of gun violence died tragically. 5-year-old Maya Patel was playing inside of a hotel room. Her family owned and ran the hotel on Jewella when she was struck by a random bullet through a window. Suspect Joseph Smith tearfully confessed on social media.
Girl, one day, and apologized to her. This is not how I wanted to live my life.
And then was taken into custody. March and May would prove to be the 2 deadliest months of 2021, with 11 killings each and claiming more kids. May 16th, 16-year-old Antonio Roberson was killed.
SPD says it happened when 3 boys were walking along the road and a silver car pulled up. Someone got out and started shooting.
And May 28th, 16-year-old Carlos Daniels was gunned down.
Police say they believe it was a drive-by shooting. Right now they're looking for 4 male suspects who were in a dark sedan.
In July, the city held its collective breath searching for 17-year-old Shamaya Little, who was missing for days. Her family feared the worst. That's where the body was found, behind there by a lawn crew just before 2:45 this afternoon. On July 12th, her body was found behind a business on Curtis Lane, just north of I-20. Then on September 4th, gunfire outside of the Tinseltown movie theater and a rolling gun battle along Uri Drive.
They just started shooting. Just shots. And then I heard my back window glass break.
13-year-old Kelvante Degre killed and at least 2 others wounded. By nearly the end of September, every homicide victim had been shot and killed. And then a heart-wrenching and unthinkable crime that shocked the community. On September 24th, police say a mother stopped on the Interstate 220 bridge and threw 2 of her children off.
Where first responders have pulled 2 children out of the water. One confirmed dead, the other in the hospital.
One survived, but 2-month-old Joshua Black did not, becoming the youngest homicide victim of the year and the first to die of other means than gunfire.
And again, as of today, November 16th, 80 homicides in the city of Shreveport. Again, one more tonight, just a couple of hours ago. One on Sunday, a young man killed in the Cedar Grove neighborhood. And just 12 days ago, 3 people killed in one incident. A mother, her 18-year-old brother, and her 12-year-old son killed in a horrific crime, again in the Cedar Grove neighborhood. Part of understanding deadly crimes in our community is understanding where and why they are happening. This year, I've been tracking all the data I can about homicides in our community. Names, ages, locations, race, how they were killed, information about the suspects as well. Here now, a breakdown of where these crimes are happening in our community by zip code.
Well, the detectives came to my house and they told me that my son was killed and that he died a hero.
Yolanda Brazil got the news March 10th this year.
It's undescribable. It's so hurtful. I cry every day and I cry every night.
Her son, Kelvin Brazil, killed here in the 100 block of Hamilton, just blocks from her house. Kelvin was 23. Mom says when the shots rang out, Kelvin helped some younger kids get down on the ground. At Kelvin's homegoing service, a packed house, raw emotion over a young man taken too soon.
In spite of what others may say in the media, this young man was a good man, Lord. Lord, he laid down his life for his fellow man. He gave his life so somebody else can live. And for that, God, we say he's a hero to you, God.
Kelvin is part of what is sadly a record pace of killings in Shreveport in 2021. At current pace, Shreveport would end up at 93 homicides, 7 more than 1993, Shreveport's most violent year. The rate of homicide in Shreveport this year is also alarming, 40.6 per 100,000, more than 6 times the national rate, which is 6.5 per 100,000. That would place Shreveport 5th in the nation in homicide rate this year, comparing to the same FBI stats. But we wanted to take an even closer look to show you where the most challenged areas of the city are. Kelvin Brazil was killed in zip code 71101. He is one of 3 men killed in this area of Lakeside, Allendale this year. But listen to this. Our analysis finds that 2 other Shreveport zip codes account for nearly half of all killings in the city, 44.8%. In zip code 71108, 15 killings this year, an area west of I-49, south of Midway, and north of 3132. But the deadliest zip code in Shreveport is 71109, just to the west, the I-20 corridor, mostly west of Jewella. So far this year, 20 people killed here by violence. In fact, the crisis is so concentrated in Shreveport that just the city's top 3 zip codes have more homicides this year than the entire cities of Boston, St. Paul, and Omaha, all bigger cities than Shreveport. Other zip codes of concern, 71106, hugging I-49 through the Cedar Grove neighborhood, where 14 people have been killed this year. And 71107 along North Market Street, where 10 people have been killed this year. Take Shreveport's top 4 zip codes, 71106, 07, 08, and 09, and you account for nearly 74% of all homicides in the city this year. Let's go back to Shreveport's deadliest zip code, 71109. 20 homicides in an area with just under 20,000 people. The homicide rate alone for this zip code is currently 102 per 100,000. If this area were its own city, it would have the highest homicide rate in the nation, and it wouldn't even be close. The most violent city in America is St. Louis, with 64 homicides per 100,000.
Thy will be done with the troubles of this world.
For Yolanda Brazil, all those numbers won't bring back her son, and they don't soothe the mother's pain.
As a mother, I feel robbed. I feel it's senseless violence and it's guns. And it seems like it's always an innocent person.
But she did tell me she hopes something can be done so other mothers don't suffer as she has.
He was my rock. I'm gonna miss him. You know, people don't realize what they take from you.
And we should also point out our neighbors over the river in Bossier City. In Bossier City this year, there have been 6 homicides. 4 of those have been solved. 1 remains in active investigation. 6 homicides in Bossier City with a population of just over 68,000 calculates to a homicide rate of 8.7 per 100,000. That is slightly above the national average of 6.5. Now, as part of our effort, we are trying to solve these homicides tonight, and we're partnering with Crime Stoppers to do that. If you have any piece of information, even a small bit of information, we're asking you to call Crime Stoppers right now to help take a bite out of crime in our community. That number, 318-673-7373. Remember, you can remain anonymous and you could qualify for a cash reward. We're going to talk about the city of Shreveport's response to violence right now. But before I get to that, I want to point out that many people in the community are coming out. We have with us faith leaders, activists, families of victims. Several families of victims have come out tonight. So we want to thank them for coming out. We're going to actually hear from them a little bit later on in this broadcast. For more than 2 weeks, I did request an interview with the mayor. We know he's been busy. He was in Washington yesterday, so he was not able to meet with me yesterday on this issue. But I did speak with the mayor last month during National Night Out about what the city is doing to stem the tide of violence.
And we can send a strong message that we're going to be working together to keep this community safe and keep this community whole.
And the timing is really good. I mean, obviously, we're on record pace for homicides this year. To get out and to interact with the community and make those relationships, that's super important, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I mean, this is one of those proactive things. We already had it on the calendar. We couldn't do it last year, but this year we insisted on doing it because we do have a crime surge right now. So this is just one of those ways that we can all come together, all of us law-abiding citizens that want to make sure that we are promoting camaraderie and fellowship, and that we are all 100% against crime. So this is the way we come together and we send that message, that unified message.
And we were also able to talk with a number of city council members as part of our coverage tonight. My partner Troy Washington has been interviewing them over the last couple of weeks. So what are they saying some of the solutions are in order to try to deal with all this violence, Troy?
Well, Bill, city leaders say that the crime, it impacts them too, and it's time to turn things around. In fact, they're actually already working to turn some things around when it comes to increasing police presence and also improving mental health resources, all things they hope will bring change.
We started off with violent crime that affected the police department. We hadn't been sworn in a full 2 weeks before we had a slain officer, Shanteri Payne.
City Councilwoman Livette Fuller says that was the beginning of the term, but that may have set the tone since things only picked up from there.
Big city crime in a small city, and it is personal. These families are all impacted. Like, everyone knows someone that's been impacted in some way.
So what's the plan? What's the solution? Fuller has one idea.
One thing this community needs is more access to mental health treatment.
Then there's a violence interruption approach, a community-based approach to cutting crime.
Treating violence like a health epidemic, like a public health epidemic.
Fuller thinks the key to getting people to put down the guns is to bring hope to their neighborhoods and answering some other important questions.
We need better jobs, we need better education, we need better opportunities, but you can't wait for those things to show up. So what can we do in the meantime? How can we better develop a workforce? How can we better train people to be better employees? How can we help parents to be better parents in order to help their own children to succeed in school? How can we curb food deserts, which will allow for healthy food to be in an area? Because if you're not eating well, your mental health is going to be impacted just as much as your physical health, right?
According to Councilman Grayson Butcher, the council is working overtime to make changes that should make a difference.
The council has made budget amendments that have allowed the police department to get new equipment. We needed new police cars. We've budgeted for that. The new police chief has come in. He has decided to have take-home cars, which I think is going to make a really major impact.
He says officers no longer have to do a roll call downtown, so they are on the job earlier, which is key because he believes the increased police presence will prevent crime, and less crime means saving lives in the port city. They believe increasing the police presence will in turn get some of those officers on the streets quicker and hopefully deter some crime. But again, Bill, what we do know is that it will take all of us. It'll take everyone in these neighborhoods speaking up. And if they see something out of place, you just have to say something at the end of the day.
No question. I think Livette Fuller made a great point. It's all about hope. People need hope for a better future, and that will, I think, go a long way. All right, Troy,
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. And as Troy mentioned, we want to remind you, we're trying to take a bite out of crime tonight. If you know something about a violent crime, about a gun crime, about a shooting in the city of Shreveport, we're asking you right now to call Caddo Crime Stoppers. The number 318-673-73. You can leave an anonymous tip and you could qualify for a cash award. One thing we can report to you this year that is positive is that Shreveport police are solving a vast majority of these homicides. In fact, according to Shreveport police, 53 of the 80 homicides this year have been solved. That's 68%. And while that is good, it still means that loved ones of 27 victims of homicide this year are still waiting for answers. One thing that's changed policing over the last year and a half is COVID-19. It's taken away that close touch of community policing where police get to interact with the community, building relationships and building trust. I did have a chance to ask Substitute Police Chief Wayne Smith about how that makes a difference.
I think the fact that you couldn't do that over the last year and a half, and really police around the country couldn't do that over the last year and a half, has impacted the crime rate, not only here in Shreveport, but around the country.
Well, certainly it have. The more we know about our neighborhoods, the more our neighborhoods can communicate with us and feel comfortable in doing so. It gives us in policing the opportunity to address neighborhood concerns.
Remember, it's been a challenging year for the Shreveport Police Department. Back in August, Police Chief Ben Raymond stepped down at the request of Mayor Perkins. And of course, the Shreveport Police Department has been down about 100 officers for most of this year. Now, the last time Shreveport saw such a violent year was back in 1993. 86 people were killed that year. That is an all-time record for the city of Shreveport. Caddo Sheriff Steve Prater knows that well because he was chief of police in the city of Shreveport that year. Sheriff Prater is a man, of course, who does not mince words. First thing he told me is that violent criminals are getting out of prison too easily.
Are pretty darn good at catching the thugs. Okay, but we have a catch and release program going on that is continuing to plague not only Shreveport, but I'd say all of Louisiana.
Prater points the finger at the state legislature and governor, saying the criminal justice reform bill a few years ago softened penalties and let some felons out, and now Shreveport is paying the price.
I'm looking over here at the criminal's background, saying this fool shouldn't have been out. And I'm telling the parents over here, I'm sorry your child is dead. And, you know, where's the balance? Why is that all on us and not on the state officials?
By the time it's a homicide, it's too late. Prater says the penalties are not stiff enough for felons caught with guns.
We've got to develop a culture where a criminal that is told they can't possess a firearm, that they realize if I possess a firearm, I'm going to jail for a considerable length of time.
Prater says solving the homicide problem means everyone working together, state lawmakers, police, prosecutors, and citizens unafraid to report a crime.
I just know that we can do a better job. If you think that having 75 homicides in Shreveport, Louisiana is okay, there's something wrong with you.
And in this segment, we're going to focus on the prosecution of these crimes. There are two main prosecuting bodies in the city of Shreveport: the Caddo Parish District Attorney, of course, and the U.S. Attorney for Western Louisiana. Shreveport is the biggest city and the major focus of that federal office. The office is led by acting U.S. Attorney Alexander Van Hook. I asked him how criminals keep getting illegal guns out in the streets. He said one way is by stealing them from law-abiding citizens like you and I.
We would encourage people to be careful with them because we find them coming from cars that are left unlocked. That's a significant problem. Another thing that we focus on here is what we call straw purchasers, people that buy guns for people that shouldn't have them.
Is that something you see here?
Oh, absolutely, and it's something that we prosecute here, and it's something that we plan to prosecute more of. So when you buy a gun, you fill out a questionnaire, and it asks you, are you buying the gun for yourself, or are you buying it for someone else? And so they lie on the form, and they're people that, you know, we see people that buy, you know, tons of guns. And so, well, you can have as many guns as you want. They have to be for you.
Do you think taking guns off the streets and out of the hands of felons will have measurable impact on the homicide rate and on violence?
Well, if I didn't, we wouldn't be doing it. You know, I can tell you that we have brought a lot of firearms cases in this district this year, and we've ramped up our efforts starting back in 2017. And from 2017 to 2019, we saw a significant drop, or a measurable drop. We haven't seen it so much in 2020, 2021, and we're not really sure why.
How much does drug activity, drug trafficking tie in with firearms and firearms violence?
I think it ties in very closely. Most of the people that we have prosecuted for drug trafficking crimes have firearms. That's a tool of the trade. And if your drugs are stolen or your money's stolen, or you need to protect your drugs or you protect your money, you can't call the police department. They use firearms.
In the last couple of years or year and a half, we're talking about COVID, we're talking about some, protests about the police, et cetera. Do you think those things had an impact on
not only crime here in Shreveport, but nationwide?
Yes, I do. And I also think that, what COVID has done is created this terrific backlog of cases, where people are not being brought to trial as quickly as they should be. Our state partners in particular, I think, have had to make some choices because the jails, the pretrial detention facilities have gotten full. And I do think that the community needs to get behind our police department. You've got to get behind the men and the women who work for the police department, and you've got to help take back your own community. You've got to work with law enforcement to help us get to the bottom of what's going on.
And here's another thing you may not realize. It's a state crime for a felon to be in possession of a firearm, but it's a federal crime simply for a felon to possess ammunition. The feds say that they will use that statute to prosecute felons if they have to, if they're possessing illegal ammunition. We also talked recently with Caddo DA James Stewart. We talked with Stewart in advance of an investigative piece on how many gun crimes are being prosecuted in Caddo Parish. We asked the DA to evaluate how his office is doing in fighting gun crimes and violent crimes in Caddo Parish.
A great working relationship with law enforcement in terms of designating which crimes need to be pursued. We work with them to develop the evidence that meets the legal standard to prosecute those crimes. Based on what we've been doing the last couple of years, we are making progress. There are challenges both on the law enforcement side and there are both challenges in the prosecution side in terms of developing these cases.
And our investigation found that in May and June of this year, 82% of gun crimes charged by police were prosecuted to some degree either by the Caddo DA or by the U.S. Attorney's Office. At the state level, Louisiana Attorney General Jeff Landry has some definite thoughts on violent crime and why it's rising not only in Shreveport but across the entire state of Louisiana. He blames the Reinvestment Act of a few years ago. Landry says that law, while it may have been well-intentioned, has opened a Pandora's box, creating a cycle of violent crime in which we're now embroiled.
The Criminal Justice Reinvestment Act, which was passed by the Louisiana legislature, championed by the governor, basically said we had too many people in jail and we were going to let people out of jail based upon certain criteria. And it was all in the name of savings and that we were just such a mass incarcerating state. That was the wrong method, right? Because now the criminals know that if they conduct the crime, they know they're going to get out earlier. They can calculate it themselves. In fact, they calculate it better than the DAs and the prosecutors. We went about it in a backwards fashion. And I think you're seeing the results of it.
For Shreveport State Representative Tammy Phelps, the problem of rising crime hits especially hard for her. The three most violent zip codes in the city of Shreveport fall into her district, and she tells us that is of great concern to her.
Looking at the captains in our areas, becoming more familiar, of actually sitting down with them and kind of getting some ideas, again, that even as legislatures that they want to see, how can they have the authority to do what they think will work in our communities. Mm-hmm. Again, I have to go back to the juvenile side because we're trying to catch them before they become adults with records.
The loss of a loved one to something as senseless as gun violence is devastating. It's even more painful when a family can't get justice for that crime. We heard earlier tonight from Yolanda Brazil, still waiting for answers about her son Kelvin's killer. Now the story of a father of 5 on his way home from Texas to attend his mom's birthday in the city of Shreveport.
March 11th, 2021, 30-year-old Eric Young was driving from Dallas to Shreveport for his mom's 50th birthday, but he never made it. Gunfire at Interstate 20 in Jewella struck Young, a father of 4 with one on the way.
To know our son, he did not bother anybody. He wasn't the type that caused confusion with anybody. I mean, if you didn't bother him, he didn't bother you.
Eric was a commercial truck driver in Texas. At this gas station and convenience store on Jewella, Mom Jackie Young Smith got the news 2 days before her birthday, meeting a Shreveport detective here.
I ran up on him. I asked him where was my baby, and he said he couldn't even look me in the face. and he just had his head up in the air and he couldn't look me eye to eye, and he just said it was an accident at 4 o'clock in the morning.
But it wasn't an accident, it was a homicide. Her oldest son was dead. Jackie says she was in denial.
I just remember calling his phone over and over and say, they telling me you gone, they telling me you gone, answer the phone, you always answer my call me back.
6 months later, his killing remains unsolved. His family wants answers.
You know, these baby do not deserve to be in this world without their father because some selfless person did it. You know, face what you did. At least your mother will get a chance to still visit you.
But so far, no answers from police about who killed Eric Young. Jackie says she's not the person she used to be. That's gone. But she did get some peace recently in a dream.
But when in the dream, I went to him and I grabbed his face and I kissed him. And I said, I love you so much. You were so good to me. You made me so proud. And he said, so my baby was born. I said, yeah.
And welcome back. I'm joined now by some of the families who suffered the horrific loss of gun violence in our community this year. We want to get right to them. First of all, Jackie Young Smith, who lost her son Eric in March of this year. Give me a little bit about your son and just, you know, the devastating loss that you're dealing with.
My son was 30 years old and he had 5 beautiful children, one that he didn't even get to meet, that was born after he was murdered. My son was coming in for my 50th birthday, as we was talking about, to come to celebrate. He worked 2 straight weeks driving trucks to make sure he was there because I stayed on him and his brothers wanting to get a family portrait that we never got a chance to make.
And I know it seems obvious, but what's the impact like on your family?
I don't even want to do the holidays. I've asked my other sons just to give me this Thanksgiving, and I have planned to stay in a hotel by myself because this is hard. I've tried to stay strong for everybody, my grandchildren, and it's devastating. It's words I can't, as you can tell now, I can't even find the words to even say that. I don't even know how I get up every morning.
Thank you for being here, Jackie. And this is Yolanda Brazil. Yolanda's son Kelvin was 23 when he was shot, also just a few days different than Eric's death. And I know that you were crushed by that. You and I have been talking for several weeks now.
Yes, I'm very crushed by that. That my baby was 23 years old and he was innocent, you know, and I'm just really finding it hard to just, depression is real. I feel like I've lost a lot. I feel like I've been robbed. Like someone just took my baby from me. It's just hard. It's hard.
We had a homicide tonight. Another family is suffering this loss. That's number 80. And I know each one of these affects you.
Each one, because it opens up the wound again. It's opened up a wound, and no matter how many people surround you and try to love on you and try to encourage you, it hurts. It hurts.
Thank you for being here, Yolanda. We also have with us parents, Sharon Johnson and Clinton Johnson Sr. They lost their son, Clinton Johnson III, who was a basketball player. This was in the Cedar Grove neighborhood. I mean, there are no words, but what are some of the things that you've been dealing with over even just the last several weeks? Because this wasn't that long. This was only a few weeks ago.
It's very heartbreaking. Very, very heartbreaking.
Yeah. And Dad, I mean, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, we here tonight up on Clinton Johnson III. It's just so hard for our family to just cooperate. You know, we going through so much. We asking them for information, to anybody have any information about whoever did this senselessly violent to our son, just come forward, you know. We just grieving so hard behind this loss of our son. We just want whoever did this violent, this senselessly violent, just come forward, please.
Certainly is.
Forward.
And that's one common thread that you all have. All 3 of your son's homicides are unsolved. So we certainly hope you get some positive news towards getting justice. And we are also turning tonight to the faith community. There are many pastors and church leaders across our city who care deeply about this issue and who have very strong feelings about violent crime in our community and why it's gotten so out of control. We start tonight with Pastor James McManus from Word of God Ministries.
But it doesn't begin in the street, it begins at home. And I feel like this cycle that we're in, that we're seeing not just in Shreveport, but across our nation, is a breakdown of what has happened actually in the home. When you look at the 10 commandments, the one commandment that needs to be just spread across Shreveport is the 6th one, thou shalt not kill. But what's interesting, before you get to that 6th commandment, thou shalt not kill, you have a 5th commandment that says honor your mother and father. In the last verse in the Old Testament, Malachi 4:6, God ends the Old Testament with this statement, that without a reconciliation between children and their fathers, the earth would be met with a curse. So from the very beginning, God has put the mandate and the responsibility of a culture on the shoulders of men. And when you see that breakdown, which we're seeing, it shows up in the streets. That's where we are today. 1 Timothy chapter 2 tells us to pray for those that are in authority. So we need to be praying for our mayor. We need to be praying for our police chief. We need to be praying for law enforcement. We need to be praying for all those that sit in seats of influence, from the city council to our coaches, teachers, in the classrooms, parents. We need to be praying for those that are in authority.
And we are joined tonight by a number of pastors from across the city of Shreveport. I was going to go through and introduce them all, but in the interest of time, I'd much rather get to their messages. So let's start with Donzel Hughes. I know you have your own movement called Please Stop the Killing. Tell me a little bit about what that's about.
Please Stop the Killing, we started back in February of 2019. It's not just a song that we do have out, but we've gone to various neighborhoods, communities, projects, just random parking lots where there have been acts of violence and killings and shootings, and we've gone in, we pray, we walk, we sing, we just put God first in everything we do, because we know God can make a difference. Yeah. And regardless of what anybody else says, prayer still works. Right. And it does work, and we need more of our pastors in our city, everybody, our leaders, to just come on out and be more community minded.
All right, we've also got Bishop Ricky Moore here, and you and I have walked the streets together calling for an end to the violence. Tell me about some of your activities and how you mentor people and what your message is in order to try to bring this problem under control.
The reason why we walk is because prayer without action is empty, and action without prayer is dangerous. By me standing here in front of this funeral home, I think about at least 12 funerals I have officiated over here at this funeral home. Between age 13 and 27, our young men are on the endangered species list. And change got to start in the heart. And we got to do something. We can't just pray. We got to put some action to it. And I tell you something else what we need to do. It begins in the home. Parents need to take responsibility. Know where your children are. And if you want to change, it begins with the individual. The individual changed the community changed the city changed the state, and the state changed the world. So if we want this world to change, we got to have a change of heart.
I appreciate that. I also invited Pastor Roy King here of the Living Epistle Church. Your church is in Cedar Grove, and it's been rough in Cedar Grove lately. I believe 5 of the last homicides have been in the Cedar Grove community. You and I met at a memorial service for a young man in that community. That was your nephew. And why don't you tell me about how you pastor to people through such difficult times when they've had such incredible loss like this, and what some of the solutions might be?
Well, for instance, you just mentioned the young man we met. That was my nephew, my older brother's grandson. So this is where we are. I'm learning to get out and sit where they sit with them in order to be able to feel somewhat of what they feel, then our communication become much more richer. But at the same time, we are able also to move out into the community, out of our sanctuary, out in the community, and minister to not just the lost, not just the children in school, but mainly to the trigger persons who are doing the shooting. It's good to go among young boys like this kid here, but he's not the shooter. We need to be where the shooter is, talking to them. And I know from prayer and experience, we can talk the shooter out of that gun.
Amen. All right. Well, we're going to have to take a break. Before we do, I know your pastors. Why don't you pray us out as we go to break here, and we'll be right back with one final thought.
Dear Heavenly Father, right now, you do all things and do all things well. Shreveport have 18 communities. Cover them right now. Give leadership to our mayor, city council, chief of police, and first responders. pray for the hearts of every grieving mother tonight. In Jesus' name, amen. And thank God.
Amen. Very much, and we'll be right back after this. And some final thoughts as we wrap up this special tonight. We all want Shreveport to be the best that it can be. Record violent crime hurts more than just destroying lives and crushing the hearts of family members and their loved ones. We leave you tonight with a look at the faces of Shreveport's homicide victims this year. To solve this problem, we need everyone in our community involved. Ask yourself, what can you do to help solve this problem? Can you mentor a young person? Can you make a difference in someone's life? There are plenty of ways that you can get involved. And for those of you who witness violent crime, silence is no longer an option. It only emboldens criminals to keep committing violent crime. The next victim might be someone you love. We need Shreveport to thrive. It can't do that when people live in fear of violent crime. You can make a difference. For all of us from KTBS News, good night.